Welcome back to Table Talk. I'm Brian Kell. We're joined in with this very special Table Talk edition with the Representative Cameron Sexton. We spent the first segment kind of talking about you as a person. Now we're going to put the representative title back on you and talk about the area and the state. As far as what you feel are some of the most pressing issues that will be coming up in 2018 for the state in this area. Talk about what some of those hot button issues are.
Well, serving as chairman of the Health Committee in the House, probably the thing that's garnering the most talk right now is the opioid problem that we have, and then healthcare insurance in general would be the other two top things. I think medical marijuana is on the radar again for this year, so we'll see what happens on that. Opioid
issue is just such a huge national issue, and I know that many states are trying to wrap their heads about it's just a growing problem and a tough one to solve quickly, I guess.
It is. It's a very complex problem because it's a legal drug that's being used illegally, and so it kind of creates its own problem. What I will say is at the end of the day is we've had, you go back when I worked for Van Hillary 2 decades ago, you had methamphetamine coming across. And so you started with methamphetamine, then they went to crystal meth because the cartels were making it. Then that got too pricey, and then people moved to opioids because they could get it from the medicine cabinets. What I will say is 50% of the people who start on an opioid get it from their family's medicine cabinet. So you got to look at that problem. And now what you've seen is people moving off opioids because of the economic costs to it, is what they have to buy it on the street, and they're moving more towards a heroin that's laced with fentanyl. And so what I've always said is we're always going to have some type of drug abuse, substance abuse type of issue, alcoholism. What we really have to understand is more about the disease and about how to treat the disease, because we're really not treating it to the way we should. A 30-day detox plan may work great for 30 days, but it takes the brain 18 months for an opioid addict to get it back to where it needs to be, where they can make a decision based on their frontal lobes coming back. So all of our treatment programs are designed for those 30, 60 days. It's not designed to get to 18 months. And so what you're doing is spending a lot of money up front, and you're having a big relapse. So we really need to go back and reevaluate how we treat.
As far as you said something else, and it's healthcare in general. Businesses are trying to wrap their brains as much around that as possible and try to get it under control as much as possible. And the government's no different than that. How do you see that shaping up?
Right. Randy Boyd, who's running for governor, he was in town not too long ago, and I was with him for a little bit of his day there. And he makes a very interesting argument, which is he's like, you go buy any other product in the United States and you know what the cost is, you know how much your cost is if you're selling it, and the patient knows how much they're spending to get it. There's nothing in healthcare where you know what the cost is. And people associate the cost with their copayment. Well, the copayment's really not the cost. And so what he talked about is how he did a health savings account for his employees to try to have better decisions. But as being able to have those better decisions, you have to know what the costs are. And so he tells an example where he went into a doctor's office to try to say, okay, I need to have this run on me, how much the cost? And he said when he went through the process, nobody could ever tell him what the ultimate cost was. And so when you look at it from that standpoint, if we're truly trying to make better decisions on healthcare and what things cost and hold some accountability, how does a physician's office, how does the patient, and how does a hospital, how's the insurance companies the only one that know what the costs are, and why is there not transparency back to the patient about what that's going to cost?
You already mentioned the health subcommittee that you're on right now. Talk about the House Local Government Committee and what all's involved with that.
Well, we look at it's a lot of local bills, as it says. This year I carried the short-term rental bill, which is the Airbnb bill, and a lot of times in local committees, we push back a lot on Metro Nashville. They're the ones who are trying to have more, in our opinion, more liberal policies and trump state law or override state law. And so we spend a lot of time going back trying to make sure that they don't do that. But the interesting thing about short-term rental property or Airbnbs is does the property owners have the right to use their property the way they should? Or should the metro government be telling them that they can't use it that way? And so it really comes back. So there's a lot of back and forth on property rights and individual rights on local committee.
and House Calendar and Rules Committee.
Yeah, that's the last stop before a bill goes to the floor. So as you work your way through all the systems, the last place you go is through Calendar and Rules, which has all the chairmen on it, plus some people in leadership and a few additional people. And they're the ones who send the bill onto the floor if it gets out of there.
It seems like through having all of our representatives come through here over the months that have led up to this interview, I hear way more talk about, and you've kind of already said this already, I hear way more talk about rural versus urban than Democrats versus Republicans.
Right.
Is that just the way right now the state house is kind of set up, as way more squabbling over rural versus urban than really getting into D's versus
Well, I mean,
R's?
I think so, but
you probably still get a little bit of both.
Yeah, I think so, but it's also because the Republicans, we have the supermajority. So the R and D title, it doesn't really matter down there as far as if you're looking at passing legislation, because you're not trying to garner enough votes from the other side to pass something.
Right.
So there's no middle road compromise that you need. So we do spend a lot of time talking about rural versus urban. And to tell you, there's more urban legislators than rural legislators. But, you know, broadband, the Tennessee Broadband Act was started because of rural issues. And I think what you're seeing is rural communities wanting to do more and have more for their community and their kids and at their job sites. That's really just been in the areas that encircle the big cities for the last decades. And I think what you're seeing is a big pushback.
So, you know, you've already mentioned this too, one of the issues that's kind of facing this area that you represent in general is Fall Creek Falls. Mm-hmm. And like you said, it seems that they've worked that kind of, but that's been a roller coaster, hasn't it, in that? Yeah,
it has. You know, I mean, so much of the Van Buren County and the public education money for Van Buren schools comes out of the money they collect in the hotel motel tax. And so we worked out a deal with the governor to make the county whole on the lost revenue for the 18 to 24 months that it would take for the inn to be rebuilt. And the preliminary idea is to have it kind of look like the Swanee Inns, if anybody wants to go look at what the Swanee is, which is very nice and different than what we have now. But the thing is, if you have 1.6 million people coming to your park and your hotel is only 40% full throughout the year, but your campgrounds are running 100%, your cabins are running 100%, there's an issue there. And when we did tours with the governor's office and Jim Henry, the deputy governor, as well as the other department heads, is after a couple of stops in there, you're like, you can't renovate it. It needs too much work to renovate. And then you look at, you don't know what's behind that wall when you tear it down if you're trying to renovate. So then you get into a black mold issue or some other issues that could be very, very costly. And so it's, in our opinion, if we can make the county whole and not have them lose any of the sales tax dollars or the motel tax dollars, but rebuild that in 24 months, it's a win-win for everybody.
I know that in moving, you'll start back in 2018 for session?
January 9th.
January 9th, and we're doing this interview in mid-December right now. Safe to say that in 2018, with a lot of people looking to move and run for different offices, that it's going to be a time that on the Hill that we've not seen in quite some time.
There's a lot. I mean, I think right now we're up to, on both sides in the House, Republican, Democrat, probably about 20 members who are not coming back. The Senate's looking at easily of about 10 of 33, and some House members are going there. So there's a lot of change and a lot of turnover. And it's like, you know, what I have learned is there's institutional knowledge, and it takes you a while to get there, because when you get into committee, you have new people there, but they haven't been there in what we call the scope of practice battles between different medical professions. And so you have to have people there who have the history and the knowledge to say, here's why we haven't done it, and here's been the issues. Because once you lose that, then what you have is the bureaucracies in charge. And we've seen what happened with the closing of Taft. When you had a new administration come in, the bureaucracy didn't change, and they came in and actually won the battle and did away with Taft Youth Center.
I know that you've seen over your now 7 years, moving in on 8, how social media has changed things. It changed politics in a lot of respects, especially on the national level, and then even more, you know, getting more and more into the statewide level. You have ways for folks to be able to reach out to you.
I do. I'm on Facebook and I'm on on Twitter, and comes with that though is I think in this age of digital media and so forth, even is you have a lot of people who are putting forth ideas or that looks like news articles that are not news, and it's been a lot talked about on the national level, but it really does happen, and so you have to be. So if you're getting all your news from that, not saying it's any better than what the New York Times or Washington Post, but what I'm saying is you have to be careful that you, unfortunately nowadays, you can't believe everything you read. So if they have a concern or they have an issue, try to find the right person to reach out to and make sure that is an accurate reporting, because a lot of times it's probably 50% accurate.
Okay. And of course, nothing takes the place of good old, and we talked about this as far as folks that are in a situation where they feel like they need a representative's help. The good old phone line. Your phone number, I think, up at your office at the Cordell Hall building, 615-741-2343. So if someone in Van Buren or in Cumberland counties needs to get a hold of you, once again, 615-741-2343, or they can just simply go on your website and be able to look at the Tennessee General Assembly website, and your name pops up.
Well, I usually publish my cell phone number, 261-2497. People track me down at the bank. It's amazing. When people want to find you, they're easy to find.
Yeah. Any closing thoughts as we put the wrap on 2017, move into 2018? You talked about the opioid crisis and healthcare crisis. But anything else that you'd love for your constituents, our viewers, to be able to know as we move into 2018?
Right. Well, what I would say is if you're looking at the state of Tennessee and where we've gone in the last 7 years, Tennessee is doing extremely well. We've reduced taxes, record levels. We're controlling spending. We're living within our means. We're doing things that matter. We've improved our bond ratings, which help local. We're bringing in more jobs and more companies than we ever have before. We're allowing existing businesses to expand their business. And so Tennessee is almost the envy of the entire America. And so what I would say is people love governor, maybe don't like the governor, but as a business perspective and as moving the state forward and doing his role as Chief Administrative Officer of the state of Tennessee, Governor Haslam has done an extremely good job of making our state a business-friendly and business-ready state. Good deal.
I want to thank you for coming down and being a part of Table Talk today, Representative, and we'll look to see you again.
Yeah, it'd be great.
In the future. Also want to thank our group from the FBLA, Van Buren County High School, for coming on down and being at least an in-studio audience with us for half of today's full-length segment we did with Representative Sexton. And since we're probably going to be airing this the week leading into Christmas, I want to wish all of you all out there a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year from all of us at Channel 6 and also at Ben Lomond Connect. So until we join you at this table, we'll catch you later on Table Talk.